So we're talking about acceptance. Why I'm curious, what made you want to talk about this topic?
If you remember, Becca, it came across as an idea to you on a rambly voice note that may or may not have made any sort of sense. I was thinking of it as I was driving, and it came up for me actually through body image. The
Okay.
thought of acceptance came through with body image, and I was thinking about how I had gone paddleboarding at the weekend with some friends, and for the first time, probably ever, I wore shorts in public. Now, my legs have always been something that I was like at war against, right? Never liked my legs, always wanted to change my legs. No matter what I did, always hated my legs. And even through all the body image work that I did, like I'm at a place now where I don't hate them, I don't love them, they just are what they are. And I'm not going to put any more energy into that real
Place of
neutrality.
acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. But I got to that place of acceptance through not trying to get to a place of acceptance, if that makes sense. Because I was thinking
Okay.
about it. So I wore these shorts and I didn't plan to wear them, but it was so hot. And my friends were like, you are going to boil. You need to be in shorts. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And once I put them on, I actually didn't think about the fact that I had my legs out. And we saw other people, you're out and about in public. And even looking back on it, when I laugh about it and I think about the memories, me being in shorts isn't really relevant to the story. I existed as I did. But if you'd have told me 3 years ago that I would have done that, I wouldn't have believed you. If I had forced myself to try and get to a point where I was like, the goal is to get to a point where you accept your legs and you can wear shorts in public, I don't think I would have ever gotten there, because there was something about perhaps it being forced. I don't know. And it got me thinking about, which was what I think the rambly voice note was to you, about like acceptance couldn't be the goal, but it's something I've managed to attain perhaps more through more of a surrender. And it just got me thinking about, in quite a lot of different ways, like the role of acceptance in recovery with food and body image and in other aspects of life. And so then I was curious about what comes up for you when you hear the word acceptance, whether it comes up for you with body image or food, like how that lands for you.
It comes up for me about around both body image and food, in particular binging. But it's interesting because your story that you've described there, you said that you didn't get there through goal being acceptance. But it sounds in that moment with wearing the shorts with your friends that you got to that point through practicality. Like actually, practically, it just made more sense to wear shorts.
Mm.
You respected what your body needed, like to be cool and to be comfortable that day in what you're doing. It made more sense to wear shorts. And through respecting your body, that led to more acceptance. I don't know, that's how I heard it. It might not be how
No, I think you're right. But I think it didn't necessarily feel like that in the moment. I think in the moment it felt more like, would it be the worst thing in the world for you to wear shorts in public? Is anyone really paying attention to you? Does anyone care? This is me. This is the way that I look. And also the reminder of I'm surrounded by so many other different types of bodies as well. That's always really helpful. I find that really helpful when I'm in a public setting of reminding myself and actively observing the fact that we're all existing in different shapes and sizes. I have had many experiences where my body has been uncomfortable because I've been reluctant and too scared to wear shorts. Like I've gone to the beach
Mm.
in trousers or tracksuits. Remember when those were the trend? Do you remember that?
Like
Do you remember that fashion?
I like a bit of velour, but not in a
I think it's
tracksuit.
coming back, to be fair, but I remember the tracksuit era of that. So, yeah, so it's actually really interesting you mentioning it like that, because I didn't think of it like that. When I'm like, actually, yeah, that
Mm.
was what I was doing, because it was more important for me to be comfortable
Yeah.
than it was the way that I looked.
What do you think was different for you this time that actually you chose to respect your body and be comfortable rather than continue to wear trousers and just be hot and not comfortable all day? Whereas the other times in the past where you would have taken the option to be uncomfortable.
This is going to sound quite a big answer because it's not, I
Go
can't
for
turn
it.
around and be like, oh, it was this one thing. But I
But is
think
it ever just one thing? Like,
it never is. I think it is the body image work. It's the accumulation of body image work time and time again, the practice of it. So I think even though you master it to an extent, it's something that you still practice, isn't it? Those same tools of coming back to yourself, especially in moments where you may feel triggered and you may feel like uncomfortable and all these kind of things. It's the continued practice of the body image work. But also, actually, similarly to a place where I got with binge eating, where I got to the point where I was so exhausted and so tired that I just didn't really have the energy to fight it. I think I have gotten to a point like that to some extent with my body, to the point where I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered to keep caring about this. I've worried about cellulite since I was 12 years old, for the love of God. And I don't think I realized I got to that stage until that moment. I will say, actually, I did, obviously, I've talked before about how I do pole dancing once a week. You have to wear shorts for that. It's a very small, very intimate group. And I think that, like, exposure therapy for
yeah,
getting more comfortable with seeing my legs out, so that it's less of this, oh my God, I never see my legs and now I'm seeing my legs. And that's a
yeah,
shock
yeah.
to my system. I don't know if that quite answers your question.
I think it does. And I think as of that exposure that you've talked about there, it is a tool that people do use when it comes to body image work. I think it can depend on where you're at. So if you're somebody that is always body checking and always looking at yourself in the mirror, weighing yourself, checking yourself in like the windows as you walk past them, perhaps removing those tools to assess your body, getting rid of them is a helpful tool. Whereas if you're
Yeah.
on the other side and you're somebody who avoids your body by not having any mirrors and always wearing baggy clothes and never weighing yourself, then the exposure of maybe wearing something tighter around the house in a safe, comfortable environment so you can get used to what your body looks like is helpful. So it depends which place you're coming at it from.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Because it also, in the beginning stages, I say the beginning stages, for the first year or two in recovery, that kind of exposure therapy would have felt way too unsafe for me. That would have been way too triggering, would have been like putting myself at the firing line. So even where you are in recovery, there can be in certain stages where it's actually right now, the way that I can take care of myself and protect myself is by covering up. For me, I was just dressing for comfort a lot of the times in recovery. And it wasn't till I started pole dancing like 18 months ago, and I'd been recovered for a couple of years at that stage. So even that itself was something that I dabbled in, dipped my toe in. So yeah, even where you are in recovery
Yeah.
is going to very much influence what you feel you have capacity for.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what going back to what you said earlier around you got to the point where you're like, I have been obsessed with cellulite since I was the age of 12. Like I can't do it anymore. Like that kind of feeling of I'm so done with this. It's something that I thought about when it came to readiness. Because when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking around like, why is readiness and why is acceptance important, but why is acceptance also really hard? And what in particular is hard? And there was a few areas that came up for me, but I was thinking, what made me at that point be able to go into acceptance? And I think it was that readiness because I got to a point where it was like, is the pain of going through my body changing or whatever pain I perceive that will be, because obviously I haven't gone through it. So the pain I'm imagining is perceived pain. Is that more or less than the pain of just carrying on in this cycle? And I think at certain points, the pain I imagined I'd go through with my body changing would have been too much that I couldn't have got to that place of acceptance. Whereas eventually I got to a place of readiness where actually I was so sick of being in that cycle and feeling that way about my body that I was ready to lean into acceptance. And it was almost like when I got to that point, I was so ready for the non-diet messaging and the body positivity messaging that I just wanted to soak it all up like a sponge. And yeah, and I'm just thinking about it now. I was like, I'm so ready for this. But if that was a few years prior, I wouldn't have been in that place to have wanted that information and to be ready to want to actually accept those changes.
Yes. Do you remember what sort of timescale that was to build on that readiness?
No, because I was in the binging, like the binge purge cycle, and then the restrict, and then the binge, and then the just binge cycle. So it took a long time of being really like in it, I think. And I think some of the stuff that I did along that period of time did help me in getting to that place of being ready to want a different perspective on everything. Absolutely. It's really hard. Readiness is a really hard thing to, I think, put into words because it's such a felt
It is.
experience.
It is. I don't think it's something you can actively try and seek out. Is
Mm.
it? You can't be like, I need to feel ready. That's what I need. It feels like it's something outside of you that you
Mhm.
then just feel, and it's like a knowing.
It's like a knowing that you feel in your being. It's not a cognitive thing. Um, Mm. But yeah, so to share some of my experiences, because we talked about body here a bit, but I thought about binging when it came to acceptance, because I think one of the places people can get stuck with acceptance is misunderstanding what acceptance actually is. In many different ways, I think we can misunderstand it. But I knew I was binging. Like I've known that because I've done it for so many years, but I don't think I'd really fully, truly accepted I was binging. Now that might sound like a bit what? And what I mean by that is when I'd have a binge, I would try to pretend that it just hadn't happened. I'd try to just move on, ignore it, like avoid really going into why that might have happened or what I was feeling, and just hope eventually I'll just stop binging. Like I don't have to do anything. Eventually I'll just stop binging. It'll just naturally stop on its own. And when I was in that place, I would have probably thought, yeah, I accept that I binge because I know that I binge. Like I know that I've had a binge episode. So yeah, I accept it. But really, I don't think that was true acceptance because I was always keeping it secret. I was always saying, that'll be the last. That's the last one. I was always just trying to push it away. So I wasn't really fully accepting it. And I think that's where we can get a bit stuck. And then I had to get to the point where I was like, okay, if I accept it, if I actually really I do accept this, that means I have to curious about it and try and understand what was going on there and go into the feelings that I'm trying to avoid in some way. And then I also have to own the beliefs I have about myself. So if I am binging, I'm holding a lot of beliefs about who I am as a person. Like I'm out of control. I'm like disgusting, all of those things. Whereas if I can keep pushing it away, I'm not actually facing those beliefs that I have about it. And it was only when I really allowed myself to go towards that, that was really when there was the acceptance there.
That is, yeah, it's like having I guess, having the courage to approach something with your eyes wide open, knowing I was going to do all in and that I was going to gain weight. It was like, okay, if I'm going to do it, then this is what it's going to be. The way that you're talking about that, it sounds like for a while that pushing away was quite protective for you from really having to
Mm,
face some probably quite painful things.
yeah. Yeah. I think protective's probably a good word to use to describe it. And although it was protective, what it was creating was resistance. And I think that's what the issue is when we don't have acceptance. We're creating this like psychological battle or resistance with what actually is and what we want to be. And that resistance is exhausting. It's draining of your energy. It's also really emotionally dysregulating. And it just it continues that cycle of trying to avoid and deny. And it's quite interesting because when I was thinking about this episode, I like just had a little read about why is acceptance, why does it create like this difficulty for us? And actually what I came across was some like research that was speaking about when we don't accept, fMRI scans have actually shown that what it does on a neuroscience level is makes your amygdala in your brain really overactive. So you're looking for threats. You're in that like fearful state. So you're actually in a fight and flight response rather than being in like a regulated state of your nervous system, which I thought was really
Wow.
fascinating. And then when people had acceptance, actually regulated their nervous system, that they came out of that fight or flight response. Their amygdala was regulated. So then they were able to think in a less rigid way. They were open to more flexible thinking. And I just thought that was so fascinating to see actually what's going on when we are not accepting something and we're resisting it. There's so much going on in our bodies.
That is fascinating.
I just thought it was fascinating too.
Even the way you're talking about it, I'm thinking about how that resistance feels in my body. And I'm like, yeah, that is dysregulation, isn't it? You can feel that tension and that pressure in you. I love that.
So acceptance actually helps us regulate ourselves so then we can think in a way that allows us to make decisions about how we want to change or what we want to do or to be more balanced, all of that. I think that's really fascinating. And also I'm thinking when I didn't accept things, I think acceptance can lead to a really critical way of talking, like a really harsh, nasty critic. But when we move to acceptance, it's much more compassionate way of being. And again, that matches with like, for me, I think like rigidity and criticism is like that kind of tense way of being, whereas compassion and curiosity and openness and flexibility is, again, it feels more like relaxed in your body. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the language, isn't it? I was thinking, you were talking about how acceptance can be misunderstood. And so I was like, she's going to take what I'm going to say. She's read my notes. She's like,
I did it.
but you didn't. But I was thinking, acceptance. Why can acceptance be so difficult? Especially even if we know, as you said now, it's a good thing for me. It will help me if I can reach this place of acceptance, if I can take this pressure off of myself. For me, even through both the body image lens, but also through the binge eating, acceptance felt like having to be okay with something that I wasn't okay with. Like, if I accept my binging, then that means I'm okay with it. And that just means that this is what I am. With body image, it felt if I accept it, then I have to be okay with it. And then that also, to some extent, felt like settling. Perhaps it felt very finite. If I accept this, then I can't move from this place. When really acceptance is what gets you moving. But the resistance for me, I think, was a lot of this. If I accept this and I'm okay with this, then it means this is just what it is now, versus realizing for myself the practice of acceptance. I don't have to like something. I just have to accept it. I don't have to like the fact that I'm binge eating. Doesn't mean it's going to like this forever. But can I just accept that this is my situation right now?
Absolutely. Like that's how I came across, ended up going down this rabbit hole of finding this research, because I would say I do think people can misunderstand acceptance with approval, and they're different things. But what I was trying to find an answer is like, why does acceptance lead to change? Because I think Carl Rogers, who was like a counselor, his work was like really profound to the world of counseling. He has a quote, can't remember what it was, but it was something like along the lines of the paradox is that when I fully accept myself as I am, that's when I can change myself. And his whole approach to counseling was very based on having unconditional positive regard for the person that you're working with. So like complete and utter acceptance and no judgment. We're trying to bolster that in ourselves. That's what we all want to try and have in ourselves. And I was thinking he had explained paradox of it. But why? I'm like, but why does that happen? And I'm like, that's quite interesting to see it from a neuroscientific perspective of why that happens. Also, it made me think, made me think about actually if you had a child, for example, I'm not parents, I don't know, but if you were constantly criticizing that child and telling them what they'd done wrong, that wouldn't make them feel good and it probably wouldn't lead to any change. Whereas if you can show that child like love and acceptance as they are, they're probably more likely to flourish and you're actually nurturing that child then. And I like that idea of thinking about if we can accept these behaviors in ourselves, like binge eating, or accept our body changing as we go through recovery, or whatever things it is we don't like about ourselves in the recovery process. That's what we're doing. We're like talking to ourselves like we would talk to a child who's going through a difficult thing. And like you say, that doesn't necessarily mean you're saying, I love this. I love the fact that I binge eat. That's not what you're saying, but you're saying I binge eat and I can still show myself love. That's
Yeah.
what acceptance is.
Yes. Yes. Because sometimes acceptance can feel, I say this for me, it had this like vision in my head of this Zen woman who's just totally chill and nothing phases her and just everything's just great and easy. And that's just so not me or anything I desire to be like. Because I had that image in my head, it was like, I'm never going to get to that point. So why even bother? If that's what acceptance looks like, I'm so far removed from that I'm just stuck where I am. Versus, as you say, can we accept our reality for what it is, even in a factual way, without adding our own stories onto it, without it being, I binged because I'm this, or I binged and that makes me this? Can it just be, I binged, full stop? Without adding our own preconceived notions of what we believe that makes of ourselves? Can it be something that we accept as a matter of fact and allow ourselves to sit with that without forcing ourselves to be okay with it or to like it in any way? But as you said earlier, just even it allowing you to see something with your eyes wide open and face something head on, I think you're closer then to accessing some sort of curiosity.
Yeah, what you've just said there around when I just say I binge, full stop.
Mm.
I think that's really helpful because that makes me think about the ability to step back from ourselves and observe just in an observation lens, not observe with judgment or anything else, just stating what is. And I think that can be very powerful. It doesn't really sound that glamorous, does it? But I think it can be quite powerful to do.
And can I just say that I love that I ramble for 2 minutes and then you come in and you tie it neatly with a bow.
You always say
You're
this, and
like,
I actually don't think that is
you're
the
like,
case.
this is what you're saying and this is what it is. I'm like, yes, thank you.
No, I don't think that's the case at all.
But don't you find that's a lot of the things, like a lot of this recovery work, whether it's body image or food, a lot of it is actually really simple tools that you use again and again, isn't it? It's nothing fancy. Not to say it's easy, but don't underestimate the basic stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what was quite right? This is going to maybe sound a bit abstract. I don't know if it's going to
I
make any
love it.
sense. So
Let's
you
do
might
it.
wrap this one up for me, okay? Like I was trying to think of like analogies to understand acceptance.
Hey, that's a task.
I know I was feeling quite creative.
Okay, let's see where you went then. I'm ready.
It might be awful, and I might just be like, oh God, what on earth was I trying to create there?
Thank God for editing.
But what I was thinking is, when you are driving on ice, okay, in the
Yes.
winter,
Ooh, yes.
and your car skids on the ice, and your gut reaction is to want to like pull out of that, to pull away, which is resistance. Whereas actually, if you drive into the skid, you're basically accepting what's happening. You then go through the skid and then you come out and it's safer.
Yes.
There's no resistance.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, I'm not a surfer, but it is the same. People talk about this with surfers, or if you're ever caught in water, that if you are to work with the wave. So if you were to try and swim out of that current or like against the wave, you exhaust yourself completely, and you actually going to find it harder to come out of it. Whereas if you work with the wave and with the way that the water's going, it'll carry you through and then you can come out. And that's what I was imagining acceptance is.
I think you have an Instagram post there, Becca.
Yes.
Visuals are so helpful, I think, for people. Or for me, I'm visual. That makes sense to me. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Like, how can I visualize that? Because I think that I find stuff like that helpful. And I was thinking, if that makes sense to people, then sometimes having a visual thing like that can be helpful. So when you feel yourself resisting something and you want to lean towards acceptance, imagining that a wave or skidding on the ice can be something that guides you in those moments,
Yes.
like a reminder.
Yeah, I like that. Well done. You did good there. I was a bit
I
wary
should
of
say,
what you were going to say. I was like, oh God. Oh
no,
no.
it did sound, I told you it was a bit abstract to start with.
No, but I think people will understand what you're saying.
Hopefully, hopefully. Yeah. I don't have anything else to say after that.
About acceptance or about your abstract idea?
I know I have more to say about acceptance, but not my abstract idea. That was it.
Okay.
It's not a full blown theory yet.
I like it though. What else did you write down for acceptance then?
What else did I write down? I'm just having a look, actually. So, in terms of body image, what I wrote down was I think one of the challenges with body acceptance is that getting to a place of body acceptance is actually going against the main messaging we receive in our life. Because, and I'm talking predominantly here as people who like identify as women, that a lot of the messaging is to women that we should constantly be trying to fix our bodies or just managing it in some way. Acceptance, just accepting how we look and the fluctuations that will come with that, especially with like age and how our bodies change with age, and also just like general aging, as in our hair and our skin and all that kind of stuff. Not something that we're ever really taught. It's not messaging that we've been given a lot of. Body positivity came along and your body confidence movements. And that's when we started to see that more. But that's tailed away now because skinny is back in and we're not seeing that kind of body acceptance message as much as we were at one point. And I'm in my mid 30s, so I don't know if, are you about the same age as me, Katie?
I'm 30.
Yeah, and I'm guessing maybe, I don't know the age of our listeners. Please tell us if you're listening. It would be nice to know. But I imagine they may be around the same sort of age, 30s, 40s. And if we look back at kind of what we grew up in, the messaging wasn't around accepting your body. It was about you should always be changing it and fixing it in some way. So I think that's one of the battles because you're actually going against like really strong messaging and probably really strong beliefs that you've held and for such a long time. And if you're in a larger body, it's even more heightened, and the consequences of accepting your body as it is pose more of a threat than if you accept your body and it's still straight sized.
Yeah.
And I think I sound like a broken record that I always go on about this from what women are subjected to. I think it's so important because I think it's such a huge thread through all of this. You know, why people struggle with food and body image and why recovery is so difficult. So I will always bang on about it.
No, I'm glad you do because I think you're right. When I think back about when I was starting to explore the idea of body neutrality and letting go of dieting and deciding to just let my body be how it's going to be, I felt that I was forever going between the sense of feeling empowered, of I will not be pushed down, I will not be made to feel like I have to shrink myself, I am more than my body. I'm going against the tide, but it feels powerful. It feels like a statement. But all it would take is being around people who were talking about dieting or commenting about, I don't know about you, but I know people who've been getting Botox since they were 25. Things like that, where it shakes you. and you're like, oh God, I feel more like the odd one out. I feel like I'm being left behind versus feeling like, no, screw you. Like, I'm not going to follow that messaging. I'm going to do my own thing. It didn't feel like that. So for a long time, I think I would bounce between the two. I never really fully left the feeling empowered, but it just felt less secure for me. It felt less aligned, but it is becoming harder to try and land in a place of acceptance and body positivity, or whichever feels right for you, because it feels like there's even more being pushed at us.
Yeah.
These expectations and what we should be. And then you feel like this is what I should be doing. And it's just so messy.
Yeah. And when you've had that for such a long period of time, I think you have so much invested in that as well. Because if that's been your belief system and what you've grown up with and your reality, and you've put so much effort into that through dieting and exercising and having whatever cosmetic surgery it is, actually to move away from that and accept your body as is without trying to change it can feel quite threatening because you have invested so much into it and it's been such a big part of your identity that it's no small ask to try and accept that in yourself. It's ultimately a new reality you're asking yourself to accept. And I think what you described there with that bouncing back and forth is really normal, and especially depending on your environment. So I think that's really helpful. If we talk about body acceptance, I think being surrounded by body diversity is really important for body acceptance. And I noticed this myself because actually what you said made me think of this now. I had got to a place where I actually felt really quite comfortable in my body, I accepted my body and was moving away from a lot of what we've talked about today. And this was a few years ago now. It was a few years ago. I was going to try and think of the exact time, but I'm not. I'll waste lots of time trying to get there. And I went back to my hometown for a night out with my brother, my partner, and my brother's now wife. And considering I'd felt really quite accepting of my body and who I was and how I looked, I went back into that environment and felt like so insignificant and really frumpy and fuddy-duddy and like drab because I was walking around a bar where like all the women looked the same and all had like breast implants and Botox and like the hair and makeup was done very flamboyantly, tight bodycon dresses and heels and fake tan. And it was not that there's anything wrong with being like that. But my point is because I went back to that environment where everybody looked like that, I then felt like insecure in my body because I didn't feel like I belonged in that environment. And I felt very different. And I was bigger than a lot of the women there because a lot of them were in smaller bodies. And it was really fascinating to be in this environment where all my friends have different body sizes and shapes and different ways of dressing and presenting themselves. And they've all got their own uniqueness. I feel really comfortable in my own skin. But then in this environment where I can see that everybody looks very much the same and is of a certain body size and shape, I'm finding acceptance more difficult right now.
Did you recognize that at the time?
Yeah, I recognized it at the time. And it was fascinating because I have been back to my hometown like multiple times since then and gone out for food and drinks and not felt insecure with in my body. And actually I'm probably bigger now than I was at the time when I did feel insecure, but I'm prepared for it now because I'm aware, okay, this is what the environment's like. But I think what happened in that instance is I hadn't been out in my hometown on a night out for such a long time. That it blindsided me. Like I wasn't expecting to feel so jarred by it. But it was also really interesting because it made me think, actually, if that's what I grew up around, like that's the first place I ever started having nights out, maybe that did play some role in how I perceived myself and how I thought I needed to look.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
And as you say, it speaks volumes for who you surround yourself with and how that impacts how you feel about yourself. Because there is only so much we can shield ourselves from certain language and body standards. People have their own opinions, and it's not our job to try and change that. Especially, I think of people, clients I know that I've worked with, who it's one thing for them to try and accept their body when they're surrounded by family members who are pushing them to change their bodies, and there's that lack of acceptance for that. It's a whole different thing. But it's one thing to feel like it for yourself, but when you put yourself in different environments, it can completely shake the foundation with which you built.
Shakes your whole sense of self and identity.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And I think learning to tolerate distress at some point it plays some role in acceptance as well. For example, if we go back to that situation for me, it was literally, okay, I recognize I feel really crap about myself in my body tonight, and I'm feeling like my boobs need to be bigger, my thighs need to be smaller, I need to have more makeup on, like all of this stuff. Let's just have part of it was sitting with that feeling and recognizing it and letting that pass, because once that situation passed, it wasn't quite as intense, the feelings. There was still some of that, was still some residual feelings of it there, but then I was less heightened and less in it, that I could actually reflect on it and be like, what was going on for me there? What brought that up? What, if that happens again, what do I need? What is true and what is a story I'm telling myself? I could do all of that later. But actually, when I was in that moment of feeling really insecure and really unaccepting of who I was, I had to just tolerate that until it had subsided a bit.
Yeah, it's not something we can escape, is it? I think as well, like the more you practice tolerating it, it's still uncomfortable, but it does get less distressing. And you also become familiar with how it feels, don't you? You're like, okay, if I'm feeling like I need to do something and I need to do it now, if there's a sense of urgency, if there's this quickness to it, then that's probably an indication that I'm feeling dysregulated and there's something else going on. And as you say, until that subsides,
Yeah.
all you're responsible for is just getting through that moment, letting that go.
And that is acceptance in itself. It's about not trying to run away from how you feel in the here and now. It's okay, I feel like this now. Can I name that? Can I be with it whilst it's here?
I feel like we've just come full circle.
I think so too. Is that I think you did the wrapping up there, Katy.
I did. I wrapped it in a bow. Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would want people to take away if we're like, let's wrap this up with what can we take away from the episode?
I think my main thing would be notice if there's an expectation of acceptance for you, of how it should play out or how you think it should be for you, and that you get to actually decide what works for you. Like you get to decide how you want to incorporate acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean that you have to be happy with something. Acceptance is more about tolerance of the reality of the here and now without the added opinions and the added judgments. I would say to people, get curious about what comes up for you when you think of acceptance. And let us know, because I'd be curious as well, because I know we'll all have our own ideas around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I would say to take away as well. Absolutely. What beliefs do you have around acceptance? And also, where are you telling yourself you're accepting something? Actually, sneakily, you're not. Like some of your behaviors or beliefs don't really align with acceptance, because that trap I fell into around the cheating. So is there anything like that in your life where you're saying you accept, but not on a true level?
Oh, you're challenging people, Becca. I like that.
I didn't mean it to sound like a challenge.
No, in a good way. Like in a good way. Have I got blinkers on somewhere?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. I like that.
Thank you, Katy.
You're welcome. We will catch you in the next one. Thanks for listening. Let us know your thoughts as always.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.